Chapter 1. Stop reacting instantly, the biological hijack. We live in a world that demands speed. We are told that the person who speaks first is the smartest, that the person who strikes back fastest is the strongest, and that gut instinct should be our primary guide. But there is a massive difference between a fast intuition and a fast reaction. Impulse is the enemy of power. To understand why we must master the pause, we first have to understand what happens inside your brain the moment you feel provoked. When someone insults you, cuts you off in traffic, or challenges your authority, your brain perceives a threat. This isn't just a thought, it is a physical event. Your amygdala, the ancient, almond-shaped part of your brain responsible for survival, fires an alarm. It floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate increases. Your vision narrows. Your higher brain, the prefrontal cortex, is effectively taken offline. In this state, you are no longer a modern human being capable of logic, strategy, or empathy. You are a biological machine programmed for one of three things: fight, flight, or freeze. Most people live their entire lives in this loop. They are poked by the world, and they snap back. They are insulted, and they insult back. They are thermometers, merely reflecting the temperature of the room. But the powerful person is a thermostat. They set the temperature. They do this by reclaiming the space between the stimulus and the response. The power of the gap. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, famously noted that between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Most people have a space of 0 seconds. The insult happens, the anger follows, the criticism arrives, the defensiveness starts. To master your life, you must expand that space. You must learn to live in the gap. When you refuse to react instantly, something miraculous happens. The chemical surge of adrenaline begins to dissipate. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that understands long-term consequences, social nuance, and strategic advantage, starts to come back online. By waiting just 5 to 10 seconds, you are literally becoming a more intelligent version of yourself. The executive silence, a real-world study. Consider the story of a high-level CEO. We will call him Marcus. Marcus was known for being unshakable. During a high-stakes merger negotiation, a representative from the opposing company lost his temper. The man stood up, slammed his hands on the table, and accused Marcus of being dishonest and incompetent. The room went silent. Everyone expected Marcus to defend himself, to argue back, or to kick the man out. Instead, Marcus did nothing. He didn't even change his posture. He sat there, looking at the man with a neutral, calm expression. He counted to 10 in his head. The silence stretched. It became uncomfortable. Because Marcus didn't react, the other man's outburst had nowhere to go. Without a target to hit, the man's anger began to look like desperation. He realized he looked unprofessional. He eventually sat down, flushed and embarrassed. Only then did Marcus speak. He said, "It's clear you're passionate about this deal. When you're ready to discuss the numbers again, I'm here." Marcus won the negotiation not because he had better facts, but because he had better control. By refusing to react instantly, he turned a conflict into an opportunity to display total authority. He understood the core law of human interaction. The person who remains calmest has the most power. Why we are afraid to pause. If the pause is so powerful, why don't we do it? We don't pause because we are afraid. We are afraid that if we don't respond immediately, we will look weak. We are afraid that silence means we are losing the argument. In reality, the opposite is true. The person who screams and reacts instantly is the one who has lost. They have lost control of their own nervous system. They have signaled to everyone in the room that their buttons can be pushed. If I know what makes you angry, I own you. If I can predict your reaction, I can manipulate you. When you pause, you communicate that you are not easily moved. You communicate that your internal state is independent of external noise. This is the definition of true authority. The training, how to master the pause. You cannot wait for a life-altering crisis to practice this. You must train yourself in the small moments so that you are ready for the big ones. 1. The 3-breath rule. Starting today, whenever you receive a text that annoys you, a notification that stresses you, or a comment that stings, you're not allowed to respond until you have taken 3 slow, deliberate breaths. Observe the physical sensation of the irritation. Where do you feel it? In your chest, your throat, your jaw. Just watch it. By the 3rd breath, the impulse to snap back will have weakened. 2. The 5-second buffer. In face-to-face conversations, practice the 5-second buffer. When someone finishes speaking, especially if they said something you disagree with, wait 5 seconds before you answer. This does 2 things. It ensures you've actually processed what they said, and it signals to the other person that you are a deep thinker, not a reactive talker. 3. Label the emotion. When you feel the urge to react, silently say to yourself, I am experiencing the impulse to be angry. By labeling the emotion, you create a distance between you and the feeling. You are no longer the anger. You are the observer of the anger. Chapter summary. Most people react in seconds, but powerful people pause. Reaction is a sign of a mind under siege. A controlled response is a sign of a mind in command. Emotional reactions escalate problems, adding fuel to the fire. Controlled responses dissolve them, taking the oxygen away from the flame. Your goal is to move through the world with a delay built into your system. This delay is not slowness, it is precision. It is the tactical decision to let the reptile brain settle so the leader brain can take over. As you go through your day, remember this: every time you choose not to react instantly, you are performing a workout for your soul. You are building the muscle of self-mastery. You are proving to yourself and the world that you are not a puppet. The repetition phrase for this chapter: the pause is power. The pause is power. The pause is power. Chapter 2. Your emotions are being manipulated. The invisible strings. We like to believe that our emotions are entirely our own, that they arise spontaneously from our souls and reflect our true selves. But the harsh, cold reality of social dynamics is that your emotions are often a tool used by others. In the high-stakes game of life, your feelings are not just your business. They are the leverage that others use to move you where they want you to go. If you are a person who wears your heart on your sleeve, or if you pride yourself on being authentic by expressing every irritation you feel, you are essentially handing a remote control to everyone you meet. You are telling the world, here are the buttons. Press this one to make me angry. Press this one to make me feel guilty. Press this one to make me doubt myself. The moment you become predictable is the moment you become controllable. Mastery begins with the realization that provocation is rarely an accident. It is a strategy. The anatomy of provocation. Why do people provoke? In nature, a predator tries to startle its prey to make it run. When the prey runs, it stops thinking and starts acting on instinct, making it easier to catch. Human beings do the same thing psychologically. When someone provokes you, they are looking for a specific outcome. They might want to lower your status by making you look angry or unstable in a professional setting. Deflect blame by upsetting you so much that the conversation shifts from their mistake to your reaction. Gain information by seeing what makes you defensive. They learn your insecurities. Control the narrative. By triggering a scene, they can paint themselves as the victim and you as the aggressor. Think of a matador and a bull. The matador doesn't have the strength to fight the bull head-on. If he did, he would be crushed. Instead, he uses a red cape, a provocation. He waves the cape, and the bull, driven by blind rage, charges. The bull thinks it is fighting its enemy, but it is actually exhausting itself against a piece of fabric. The matador wins not through strength, but because he controlled the bull's emotions. Most people spend their lives charging at red capes, never realizing that the real enemy is standing calmly to the side, holding the stick. The workplace trap. A case study in manipulation. Let's look at a common scenario: the office power struggle. Imagine an ambitious manager named Alex. Alex is competent, hardworking, and respected. However, there is a colleague named Julian who views Alex as a threat to his own promotion. Julian knows he can't outwork Alex, so he decides to outmaneuver him emotionally. In a high-pressure project meeting with senior directors, Julian waits for Alex to present a key idea. As soon as Alex finishes, Julian smiles thinly and says, "That's an interesting, creative approach, Alex. It's a bit idealistic, though. I suppose if we had an unlimited budget and no real-world deadlines, it might work. But some of us have to focus on the bottom line." This is a classic hook. Julian hasn't attacked the data. He has attacked Alex's professional maturity. If Alex reacts emotionally, if his face flushes, if he raises his voice, or if he starts a defensive "I've worked on the bottom line for 10 years" rant, he has lost. To the directors, Alex now looks defensive, insecure, and potentially idealistic, as Julian suggested. By reacting, Alex validated Julian's trap. Julian successfully pulled the string, and Alex jumped. Now, imagine the mastered reaction. Alex hears the comment. He recognizes it instantly as a maneuver. He feels the heat of irritation, but he doesn't let it reach his lips. He pauses, as we learned in Chapter 1. He looks at Julian with genuine curiosity and says, "I appreciate the perspective, Julian. Which specific part of the budget projection do you feel is idealistic? Let's look at the numbers together right now." In this scenario, Alex has cut the strings. He didn't take the bait. He turned a personal jab back into a professional discussion. Julian, who was hoping for an emotional blow-up, is now forced to provide actual data, which he likely doesn't have. Alex remained the matador, and Julian became the one looking flustered. Recognizing the emotional hooks. To stop being manipulated, you must learn to identify the hooks as they are being cast. There are 4 primary ways people try to manipulate your emotions. 1. The competence hook. This involves questioning your skills, your experience, or your intelligence. The goal is to make you feel small, so you over-explain yourself. Manipulation tactic. Are you sure you're up for this project? It's quite complex. Mastered response. I am. Let's get started. 2. The guilt hook. This uses your sense of morality or empathy against you. It is common in family dynamics and toxic friendships. Manipulation tactic. After everything I've done for you, I can't believe you're saying no to this. Mastered response. I value our history, but I'm unable to do this specific favor. 3. The insecurity hook. This targets a known soft spot, your appearance, your past failures, or your social standing. Manipulation tactic. You're wearing that to the gala? It's bold. Mastered response. A simple smile and silence. 4. The urgency hook. This tries to bypass your logic by creating a false sense of crisis. If you are rushed, you are emotional. If you are emotional, you are controllable. Manipulation tactic. I need an answer right now, or the deal is off. Mastered response. If you need an answer right now, the answer is no. If you can wait until tomorrow, I'll give it proper consideration. Calmness is not weakness. It is strategic intelligence. The world often mistakes loudness for power and reaction for strength. We are taught that standing up for yourself means shouting back. But in the realm of psychological mastery, the person who doesn't react is the one in total command. When you remain calm in the face of a blatant provocation, you are sending a devastating message to the manipulator. You are saying, your tools do not work on me. You have no power here. I see exactly what you are doing, and it is beneath my notice. This is the ultimate form of dominance. It is strategic intelligence. It allows you to keep your higher brain, the prefrontal cortex, fully engaged while the other person is drowning in their own reptile brain, the amygdala. Think of it as a game of poker. If a player knows that a certain bet always makes you fold, or a certain comment always makes you nervous, they will use that knowledge to take your money every single time. But if your face is unreadable, if you react the same way to a winning hand as you do to a losing one, you become an enigma. You become a black hole for their tactics. They can't read you, they can't predict you, and therefore they cannot beat you. Exercises in emotional sovereignty. To move from being manipulated to being unshakable, you must practice depersonalization. Exercise 1. The scientist perspective. Next time someone tries to upset you, imagine you are a scientist observing a specimen. Instead of feeling the insult, think, how fascinating. This person is trying to use a status hook to lower my confidence. I wonder why they feel so threatened. By analyzing the tactic, you disconnect from the emotion. Exercise 2. The mirror technique. When someone says something clearly designed to provoke you, reflect it back with a question. Provocateur: you seem really stressed today, maybe you can't handle this. You: that's an interesting observation. What specifically makes you say that? This forces the manipulator to explain their hook, which usually makes it fall apart. Exercise 3. Intentional discomfort. Practice staying calm in small, annoying situations. If a waiter gets your order wrong, or someone cuts you off in a checkout line, consciously choose to keep your heart rate low. Smile. Be polite. Prove to yourself that you choose your state, not the situation. Chapter summary. The hard truth of human nature is that people will try to control you by triggering your emotions. Provocation is a weapon used to bypass your logic and make you predictable. If you react, you are a puppet. If you remain calm, you are the master. Recognize that your calmness is your greatest strategic advantage. It keeps your mind sharp while others are clouded by rage or ego. Whenever you feel that tug of an emotional hook, remember the mantra of this chapter. It is the foundation of your freedom. The repetition phrase for this chapter: whoever controls my emotions controls me. I choose to be in control. Chapter 3. Silence is a weapon. The noise of the modern world. We live in an era of constant noise. We are surrounded by a digital culture that demands an immediate take on every event, a clap back for every insult, and a public explanation for every private choice. We are conditioned to believe that the person who speaks the loudest, the fastest, or the most frequently is the one with the most influence. We have been taught that to be silent is to be submissive. We fear that if we don't defend ourselves instantly, people will assume the worst of us. We worry that if we don't fill a gap in a conversation, we appear socially awkward or unintelligent. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of power. In the architecture of human psychology, silence is not a void, it is a weight. It is one of the most versatile and lethal weapons in the arsenal of a self-mastered individual. Silence is a wall that stops an attacker's momentum. It is a mirror that reflects a provocateur's insecurity back at them. Most importantly, silence is the ultimate signal of high status. The vacuum principle. To understand why silence is a weapon, you must understand the vacuum principle. Human beings are naturally uncomfortable with silence in social settings. When a conversation stops, or when a question is met with a pause, a psychological vacuum is created. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the human ego. The person with the least self-control will always feel a desperate, physical need to fill that vacuum. If someone insults you and you remain silent, you have created a vacuum. The person who insulted you expected a reaction, anger, defensiveness, or a counter-insult. When they get nothing but your steady, silent gaze, they begin to panic. They think, did I go too far? Did they not hear me? Do they know something I don't? Why aren't they flustered? In their attempt to fix the awkwardness of the silence they created, they will almost always keep talking. They will over-explain their insult. They might say, I was just joking, obviously, or what I meant was. In those extra words, they reveal their own weakness. They have lost their footing because you refused to give them a surface to lean on. The Stoic leader, a real-world example. Think of the most powerful people you have ever encountered. Do they chatter? Do they rush to explain themselves? Usually, the opposite is true. Consider a historical example of a leader under fire. Let's look at the archetype of the great unshakable. Imagine a courtroom or a public hearing where a leader is being pelted with accusations by a hostile journalist. The journalist is looking for a headline reaction. They ask a loaded, insulting question. Isn't it true that your leadership has been a total failure and your team despises you? The reactive leader would start listing achievements. That's not true. Last quarter we grew by 20% and my team gave me a 5-star rating. This is a weak response. It is a defense. It validates the journalist's right to judge. The mastered leader does something different. He listens to the entire question. He looks the journalist in the eye. And then, he just waits. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. The room holds its breath. The journalist starts to fidget with their pen. The silence makes the question itself look petty and emotional. Finally, the leader says, "Next question." By refusing to engage with the garbage, the leader signaled that the garbage doesn't exist in his world. He didn't lose energy. He didn't lose his temper. He simply used silence to make the attacker look like a child throwing a tantrum. Why silence frustrates manipulators? A manipulator, whether a toxic boss, a jealous friend, or a manipulative partner, thrives on your response. Your reaction is their fuel. If they can make you angry, they know they can distract you. If they can make you cry, they know they can control you through guilt. When you choose silence, you are essentially starving the manipulator. Imagine a fire. A fire needs oxygen to burn. In a social conflict, your words are the oxygen. When someone tries to start a fight with you, they are lighting a match. If you respond with an argument, you are blowing oxygen onto that match, creating a blaze. If you stay silent, you are cutting off the oxygen. The match may burn for a second, but without your engagement, it has no choice but to go out. Manipulators find silence terrifying because it is unpredictable. They can plan for your anger. They can plan for your tears. But they cannot plan for a blank slate. Silence leaves them with nothing to work with. It forces them to sit with their own bad behavior. Silence in negotiation and persuasion. Silence is not just a defensive weapon. It is an offensive tool in business and negotiation. Most people lose money because they talk too much. In a negotiation, there is a phenomenon known as the first person to talk loses. If you make an offer and the other person says nothing, the average person will immediately start lowering their own price. I'd like a salary of $100,000. Boss, silence, looking at your file. Uncomfortable, I'm flexible, obviously. I could do $90,000 if the benefits are good. You just cost yourself $10,000 in 5 seconds because you couldn't handle silence. The master of reactions uses silence to exert pressure. When you ask for something, shut up. Let the silence do the work. Let the other person feel the weight of the vacuum. More often than not, they will fill that vacuum by giving you what you want, just to end the psychological tension. The high-status gaze. Silence is most effective when paired with the gaze. When someone says something inappropriate, insulting, or manipulative, do not look away. Do not look down at your shoes. Do not look around the room for help. Look directly into their eyes. Not with a glare of anger, but with a look of neutral observation. As if you are watching a strange insect on a wall. This level of eye contact combined with silence communicates absolute psychological dominance. It says, "I'm not afraid of you, and I'm not impressed by you." Most people cannot hold this type of gaze for more than a few seconds before they have to look away. The moment they look away, you have won the encounter. When to use silence? While silence is a weapon, it must be used with precision. There are 3 specific times when silence is your best response. When you are being insulted, if the insult is petty or clearly designed to get a rise out of you, silence is the most dignified response. It shows the insult didn't land. When you are asked a trap question, if someone asks you a question that has no good answer, e.g., "Why are you so difficult to work with?" silence forces them to rephrase or justify the question. When someone is venting at you, if a person is in a blind rage, talking to them is useless. Let them run out of steam. Be a stone wall. When they are finished and the silence settles, they will often feel a sense of shame for their outburst. Training the muscle of silence. Being silent when your ego is screaming at you to talk is difficult. It is a physical challenge. You will feel a tightness in your chest. You will feel your vocal cords itching to vibrate. To train this, start small. The 1-sentence rule. In your next 3 conversations, try to answer questions with only 1 sentence, then stop talking. Don't explain. Don't fill the gap. Just stop. The listening game. Go an entire dinner or meeting without offering an opinion unless directly asked. Observe how much more you learn about others when you aren't busy preparing your next sentence. The social media fast. When you see a post that makes you want to type a long, angry comment, close the app. Let your silence be your response to the digital noise. Chapter summary. Not every attack deserves a response. In fact, most don't. By responding to petty critics and manipulators, you grant them an importance they do not deserve. You bring yourself down to their level. Silence is the ultimate filter. It allows the noise to pass through you without leaving a mark. It keeps your energy focused on your goals rather than wasting it on defending your ego. Remember, the lion does not turn around when the small dog barks. The lion just keeps walking. Silence isn't just the absence of words. It is the presence of self-command. It is the sound of a person who is so comfortable in their own power that they feel no need to prove it. The repetition phrase for this chapter. Silence frustrates manipulators. My words are valuable. I do not waste them on those who seek to provoke me. Chapter 4. The discipline of emotional detachment. The misconception of the cold heart. When people hear the word detachment, they often imagine a person who is cold, robotic, or devoid of empathy. They picture a monk sitting on a mountain who doesn't care if the world burns, or a heartless executive who fires people without a second thought. This is a complete misunderstanding of the discipline. True emotional detachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the absence of entanglement. To be detached means that you allow yourself to feel the full spectrum of human emotion: anger, joy, grief, fear, excitement, but you do not allow those feelings to hold the steering wheel of your life. It is the ability to stand in the middle of a storm and say, I feel the wind, I feel the rain, but I am the mountain, and the mountain does not move. Most people are fused with their emotions. When they feel angry, they become the anger. When they feel rejected, they become the rejection. They cannot see any reality outside of their current emotional state. Emotional detachment is the wedge that you drive between yourself and your feelings. It is the realization that you have emotions, but you are not your emotions. The internal fortress. The Stoic philosophers often spoke of the inner citadel. They believed that while the world outside is chaotic and unpredictable, the world inside should be an impregnable fortress. The discipline of detachment is the process of building that fortress. It is the understanding that your peace of mind is your most valuable possession, and it is far too precious to be handed over to a rude stranger, a difficult boss, or a disappointing circumstance. When you are attached to an outcome, when you need someone to like you, or you need a specific event to go your way, you are vulnerable. You have given your power away. When you are detached, you still work hard, you still care about quality, and you still love deeply, but your internal stability is no longer tied to the result. The business of detachment, a real-world study. Let's look at a scenario involving a business owner named Sarah. Sarah built a successful marketing agency over 10 years. Her identity was tied to her company's reputation. One morning, she discovered that her top client, who accounted for 40% of her revenue, was leaving her for a competitor. A fused person would react with devastation. They would feel a sense of personal betrayal. They might call the client and beg, or send an angry email, or spiral into a week of depression, convinced they are a failure. This emotional reaction would cloud their judgment, preventing them from seeing the next move. Sarah, however, practiced the discipline of detachment. When she got the news, she felt the surge. She felt the pit in her stomach and the heat of anxiety. But instead of letting those feelings drive her, she detached. She told herself, I am experiencing a financial setback. My heart is racing because my body perceives a threat to my security. This is a natural biological response. It does not mean I am a failure, and it does not mean the business is dead. Because she was detached, she could see the situation objectively. She realized the client was leaving because the competitor offered a specific software integration she didn't have. Instead of mourning, she spent the afternoon researching that software. She called her team, explained the situation calmly, and by the end of the week, they had a plan to upgrade their services and pursue 3 new leads. Sarah felt the pain, but she reacted to the logic. This is the hallmark of a master. The theatre metaphor. To master detachment, imagine your life is a play performed on a stage. Most people are actors lost in their roles. When their character suffers, they feel real suffering. When their character is insulted, they feel real shame. They have forgotten that they are in a play. The master of reactions is the audience member. You are sitting in the darkened theatre, watching the you on stage go through life. You see the you on stage get into an argument. You see the you on stage fail a test. From the audience, you can see the whole stage. You can see the other actors' motivations. You can see the exit signs. You can see that the play will end in 2 hours and you will go home. When you practice detachment, you are stepping off the stage and sitting in the audience. You are observing your own life with a sense of interested curiosity rather than desperate involvement. The difference between detachment and apathy. It is vital to distinguish detachment from apathy. Apathy says, I don't care about my job, so I won't work hard. Detachment says, I care about my work and I will do my best, but if I am criticized or let go, my worth as a human being remains unchanged. Apathy is a sign of weakness. It is a way to hide from the world to avoid being hurt. Detachment is a sign of ultimate strength. It is the courage to engage with the world fully, knowing that nothing the world does can break you. Techniques to build detached discipline. 1. Objective description, the camera technique. When something happens that triggers an emotional response, describe the event to yourself as if you were a security camera recording it. A camera doesn't see betrayal or unfairness. It only sees physical movements and sounds. Emotional view, my best friend ignored my text on purpose to make me feel excluded. Camera view, I sent a message at 2 p.m. It is now 6 p.m. No reply has been received. Notice how the camera view has no emotional weight. It is just a fact. Facts are manageable. Stories are exhausting. 2. The 10th of October, 10 rule. When you feel an emotion starting to control your decision-making, ask yourself, how will I feel about this in 10 minutes? How will I feel about this in 10 months? How will I feel about this in 10 years? Most of the things we react to emotionally today won't even be a memory in 10 months. Detachment is simply gaining the perspective of your future self. 3. Third-person self-talk. Research shows that people who talk to themselves in the third person are more emotionally resilient. Instead of saying, I am so nervous about this presentation, say, your name is feeling nervous right now. This small linguistic shift creates a psychological distance that allows you to manage the feeling rather than being submerged by it. The power of the clean pain. In psychology, there is a concept called primary and secondary emotions. Primary emotion, clean pain, you lose your job and you feel sad. This is natural and healthy. Secondary emotion, dirty pain, you feel sad, and then you get angry at yourself for being sad, or you start worrying that you'll be sad forever. You begin to react to your own emotions. Detachment allows you to experience clean pain without the dirty pain. You allow the sadness to wash over you, you acknowledge it, and you let it go. You don't build a monument to it. You don't let it become a part of your identity. Chapter summary. Mastery is not about stopping your heart from feeling. It is about stopping your mind from reacting. The discipline of emotional detachment is the secret to making clear, strategic decisions in the heat of the moment. When you detach, you reclaim your energy. You stop wasting hours replaying conversations in your head or worrying about things you cannot control. You become a person who can look at a crisis and see a puzzle. You look at an insult and see a reflection of the other person's character, not your own. Live your life with the intensity of an actor, but the perspective of the audience. The repetition phrase for this chapter: feel everything, react to nothing. I am the mountain, the clouds are passing. Chapter 5. Train yourself to see the game. The illusion of chaos. To the untrained eye, life looks like a series of random, often frustrating events. You wake up late because the alarm didn't go off, you get stuck in traffic, a coworker makes a snide remark, your partner is in a bad mood, a bill arrives that is higher than expected. Most people spend their lives reacting to these events as if they are personal attacks from the universe. They feel like a ball in a pinball machine, bounced around by external forces, losing energy with every hit. But the master of reaction sees something different. They don't see chaos, they see a game. When you see the game, you realize that every difficult moment, every provocation, and every setback is actually a test. It is a simulation designed to see if you have mastered your internal state. Once you shift your perspective from victim of circumstances to player in a game, the emotional weight of these events vanishes. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How do I solve this level?" The test of the small things. Most people wait for a grand moment to prove their strength. They think they will be heroic during a house fire or a major corporate crisis. But the game of life doesn't start with the boss fight. It starts with the tutorials. If you cannot handle a slow internet connection without huffing in frustration, you are failing the tutorial. If you cannot handle a rude cashier without catching their vibe and becoming rude yourself, you are failing a low-level quest. The universe, or life, if you prefer, is constantly testing your readiness for more power. If you want to lead thousands of people, but you lose your temper because someone disrespected you in a parking lot, you have proven that you cannot even lead yourself. Why would the game grant you a higher level of responsibility when you haven't mastered the basics? Every minor annoyance is an emotional IQ test. When the waiter brings the wrong dish, that is the game asking, can you remain poised and solve this politely, or will you let a plate of food ruin your evening? When a stranger leaves a hateful comment on your photo, that is the game asking, does your self-worth depend on the opinion of a bot, or is it generated from within? The arena of ego. Social media. Nowhere is the game more obvious and more dangerous than on social media. Digital platforms are essentially giant laboratories designed to trigger your ego. The algorithms are literally programmed to show you things that make you angry, because anger creates engagement. When you see a political post or a controversial opinion that makes your blood boil, you are being invited to play a losing game. Imagine two people arguing in a comment section. They spend 3 hours typing paragraphs, citing biased sources, and hurling insults. What is the win condition of this game? Does the other person change their mind? Never. Do they gain respect from the audience? No, they both look unhinged. Do they improve their life? No, they've lost 3 hours of time and spiked their stress levels. The only winners are the platforms that sold ads while the two players exhausted themselves. When you see the game, you look at that comment section and realize, this is a trap designed to steal my attention and my peace. The winning move is not to play. You scroll past. You don't lose the argument by staying silent. You win the game by retaining your energy for things that actually matter to your real life. The levels of social interaction. In every social interaction, there are 2 layers. The content and the process. The content. What is actually being said? You're late for the meeting. The process. The emotional power dynamic under the surface. The person is trying to make you feel guilty to gain leverage over you. Most people only see the content. They argue about the time, the traffic, or the excuses. The master sees the process. They see the other person is trying to score a point or shift the blame. When you see the process, you can't be hurt by the content. Imagine a child having a tantrum and screaming, "I hate you. You're a bad parent." Does the parent fall to their knees in tears, questioning their worth as a human being? No, because the parent sees the game. They know the child is just tired, hungry, or overstimulated. The parent remains calm because they understand the logic behind the outburst. To master your life, you must learn to view adults the same way. Most difficult adults are just grown-up children who never learned to regulate their emotions. When a boss screams at you, they are essentially having a tantrum. If you react with fear or anger, you are joining them in the sandbox. If you see the game, you remain calm, wait for the noise to stop, and then address the situation with logic. The strategy of the non-player character, NPC. In video games, an NPC is a character that only has a few lines of programmed dialogue. No matter what you do to them, they stay on their path. Sometimes, the best way to win an emotional game is to become an NPC. When someone is trying to bait you into an argument or a dramatic scene, give them nothing but standard dialogue. I see. That's an interesting perspective. I'll take that into consideration. Okay. When you refuse to provide custom emotional reactions, the manipulator gets bored. There is no gameplay for them. They will move on to a more reactive target, leaving you in peace. Moving from defense to strategy. Once you stop playing emotionally, you can start responding strategically. Strategy is about the long term. Emotion is about the short term. When you are in a conflict, ask yourself one question: what is my objective? Is your objective to feel right? Emotional. Is your objective to close the deal? Strategic. Is your objective to get the person to leave you alone? Strategic. Is your objective to maintain your reputation? Strategic. If your objective is to close the deal and the other person is being rude, then getting angry is the worst thing you can do. It moves you further from your objective. If you see the game, you realize that enduring a few rude comments is a small price to pay to reach the win state of the deal. The master is willing to lose the battle of the ego to win the war of the objective. Exercises. How to gamify your control. 1. The observer drill. Next time you are in a crowded place, a mall, an airport, or a busy office, spend 10 minutes just watching people. Don't judge them, just observe their reactions. See how many people are clearly lost in the game. Watch the person get annoyed by a loud phone call. Watch the person get anxious about a line. Remind yourself, I am the observer. I see the game, but I am not in it. 2. The level up log. Keep a mental or physical log of tests you passed. Level 1. Someone cut me off in traffic. I didn't honk or swear. Plus 10 XP in composure. Level 2. My partner was grumpy. I didn't take it personally. Plus 20 XP in detachment. Level 3. I received a vague email from my boss. I didn't spiral into anxiety. Plus 50 XP in mind control. When you treat self-control like a score in a game, it becomes fun rather than a struggle. 3. Identify the game master. When you feel a strong emotion, ask, who is the game master right now? Is it your ego? Is it the person provoking you? Or is it you? If you aren't the one making the decisions, you've handed the controller to someone else. Take it back. Chapter summary. Life is a series of emotional tests disguised as everyday problems. Most people fail these tests because they take them personally. They believe the world is against them, rather than realizing the world is training them. When you train yourself to see the game, you gain an unfair advantage. You become the only sober person in a room full of drunks. While others are blinded by rage, ego, and insecurity, you are seeing the board clearly. You see the traps, you see the shortcuts, and you see the ultimate goal. Stop playing the game of who can be the angriest, or who can have the last word. Start playing the game of who can stay the calmest. That is the only game worth winning. The core idea. When you recognize the game, you stop playing emotionally and start responding strategically. The repetition phrase for this chapter. It's just a game. I am the player, not the toy. Chapter 6. Weak reactions destroy opportunities. The social filter. We like to believe that the world is a meritocracy, that the person with the best skills, the highest IQ, or the most experience always gets the promotion, the deal, or the partner. But the world does not just judge you on your output, it judges you on your stability. Every time you interact with another human being, you are sending out signals. These signals tell the world whether you are a safe bet or a liability. High-value opportunities, whether they are million-dollar contracts, leadership positions, or deep, trusting relationships, are attracted to stability. They are repelled by volatility. A weak reaction is any response fueled by temporary emotion rather than long-term strategy. Anger, defensiveness, whining, and insecurity are all forms of weak reactions. They are weak not because the emotions themselves are wrong, but because they signal to others that you are not in control of your own ship. And if you cannot control yourself, no one will trust you to control their money, their company, or their future. The invisible price tag of the ego. Every time you win an argument but lose your cool, you have paid an invisible price. You might have had the last word, but you lost the respect of the room. You might have defended your honor against a slight, but you signaled to your superiors that you are easily rattled. Think of opportunities as shy animals. They approach those who are calm, steady, and predictable. The moment there is a loud noise, a burst of anger, a sharp defensive retort, a flurry of insecure excuses, the opportunity bolts. It disappears back into the woods, and you may never see it again. Most people never realize why they are being passed over. They think they were unlucky or that the system is rigged. They don't see the moment in the meeting 3 months ago where they snapped at a colleague. They don't see the email they sent in a fit of pique that made a potential mentor decide they weren't worth the trouble. The interview, a tale of two reactions. Let's look at a concrete example. Two candidates, Sarah and Mark, are interviewing for a high-level director position at a prestigious firm. Both have identical resumes. Both are brilliant. The final interview is designed to test their temperament under pressure. The interviewer, a seasoned executive, looks at Sarah's portfolio and says, "To be honest, Sarah, this work looks a bit dated. I'm not sure you're up to speed with current market trends." Sarah's reaction, weak. Sarah feels a sting. Her ego is bruised. She immediately flushes. She leans forward and says, "Dated? I've worked with 3 Fortune 500 companies in the last year. If you look at page 5, you'll see my methodology is actually industry-leading. Perhaps you didn't read the whole thing." In Sarah's mind, she is standing up for herself. In the interviewer's mind, Sarah is defensive and difficult to coach. She has just signaled that if a client criticizes her work, she will argue with them rather than solve the problem. The door closes. Mark's reaction, mastered. The interviewer says the same thing to Mark, "This work looks a bit dated." Mark feels the same sting, but he has trained himself to pause. He lets the comment hang in the air for 3 seconds. He doesn't frown, he looks thoughtful. He says, "That's an interesting observation. Trends are moving faster than ever. Which specific elements feel dated to you? I'd love to hear how your firm is currently approaching those challenges." Mark didn't defend. He didn't attack. He remained curious. By staying calm, he signaled that he is unshakable, open to feedback, and focused on the solution rather than his own ego. The interviewer thinks, "This is a man I can put in front of a frustrated client and know he won't embarrass the company." The door opens. Why defensiveness is a signal of low status. Defensiveness is the most common weak reaction, and it is a massive opportunity killer. When you become defensive, you are essentially telling the world, "I am afraid that what you just said is true." High-status individuals do not defend themselves against petty accusations. If a lion is told by a sheep that he is a poor hunter, the lion does not list his successful kills to prove the sheep wrong. He doesn't care. He knows what he is. When you rush to defend yourself, you are validating the critic. You are giving their opinion enough weight to disturb your peace. This signals to everyone watching that your self-esteem is fragile. It tells them that you can be easily manipulated or distracted by simply questioning your competence. The drama-free premium. In the professional world, there is what I call the drama-free premium. There are many talented people in the world, but there are very few calm, talented people. Leaders are exhausted. They are constantly managing crises, navigating office politics, and dealing with volatile markets. The one thing they value above almost everything else is a drama-free person. If you are the person who stays cool when the server goes down, who remains polite when the client is screaming, and who takes criticism with a smile and a thank you, you become indispensable. You are a safe harbor. Opportunities will seek you out because people want to work with someone who doesn't add to their stress. Conversely, if you are high maintenance, if people have to walk on eggshells around you to avoid an emotional reaction, you will be sidelined. You won't be invited to the private dinners, the inner circle meetings, or the high-stakes negotiations. Not because you aren't smart enough, but because you are too much work. Anger, the short circuit of influence. Anger is often mistaken for power, especially by those who feel powerless. They think that by shouting or being aggressive, they are asserting dominance. In reality, anger is a short circuit. It is a sign that you have run out of ideas. It is the last resort of the person who has lost control of the situation. When you get angry, you lose the ability to read the room. You lose the ability to see the nuances of the game, as discussed in Chapter 5. Most importantly, you lose the moral high ground. The moment you lose your temper, the conversation stops being about the problem and starts being about your behavior. Imagine a customer service interaction. If a customer is calm and firm about a mistake, the manager feels a sense of duty to fix it. If the customer starts screaming and insulting the staff, the manager's only goal is to get the customer out of the store. The opportunity for a refund or a better deal is destroyed by the anger. How to stay calm when the stakes are high. 1. Lower your voice. When you feel an emotional reaction rising, your voice naturally wants to get louder and higher in pitch. This is a biological signal of distress. Force yourself to do the opposite. Lower your volume. Speak slightly slower. This biohacks your own brain into a state of calm and projects immense authority to those around you. 2. Focus on the output, not the input. When someone insults you or treats you unfairly, the input, ignore it. Focus entirely on what you want to achieve, the output. If getting angry moves you further from your goal, then anger is a bad business decision. Treat your reactions like a budget. Don't spend them on things that don't give you a return. 3. The 24-hour rule for digital opportunities. In the age of email and Slack, weak reactions are often immortalized in text. Never hit send on an email that contains a "but," "how dare you," or a "to be clear" while you are still feeling the heat of the emotion. If the opportunity is important, it will still be there in 24 hours. The damage of a weak email, however, can last a lifetime. The compound effect of composure. Every time you choose a calm response over a weak reaction, you are investing in your reputation. Reputation is the compound interest of your career and social life. Over 5 or 10 years, the person who consistently masters their reactions builds a brand of being the unshakable one. They become the person who is called when there is a crisis. They become the person who is trusted with the biggest secrets and the biggest budgets. The person who gives in to weak reactions builds a brand of being difficult. Over time, the world stops offering them opportunities. They find themselves stuck, wondering why their less talented peers are moving ahead of them. Chapter summary. Your reactions are the gatekeepers of your future. A single moment of defensiveness or anger can close a door that took years to open. Calmness is not just a personality trait. It is a competitive advantage in a world full of reactive, emotional people. If you want the world to give you more responsibility, more money, and more respect, you must prove that you can handle the pressure without cracking. You must show that your North Star is your purpose, not your feelings. When the world tries to shake you, stand still. Let the noise pass. When you remain composed, you prove you are ready for the opportunity. The core idea. Opportunities do not seek out the loudest or the angriest. They seek out the most stable. Composure is the currency of high-level success. The repetition phrase for this chapter. Opportunities respect composure. I am steady. I am ready. Chapter 7. Control the story in your mind. The architect of reality. We often believe that our emotions are a direct response to the world around us. We think that if someone cuts us off in traffic, the anger is caused by the car. We think that if we lose a job, the despair is caused by the layoff. But this is a psychological illusion. Nothing in the external world has the power to make you feel anything. Between the event and your emotion, there is a hidden step that happens so fast you likely don't even notice it. That step is interpretation. You are not reacting to what happened. You are reacting to the story you told yourself about what happened. You are the architect of your own reality, but most people are building their houses out of faulty blueprints and fear-based narratives. To master your reactions, you must become the editor-in-chief of your own mind. You must learn to seize the narrative before it creates an emotional firestorm. The mechanism of the story. The human brain is a meaning-making machine. It hates ambiguity. When something happens, especially something negative or unexpected, the brain immediately rushes to fill in the blanks. It needs to know why it happened and what it means for your safety and status. Consider this sequence. The stimulus, the fact your boss didn't say good morning when they walked past your desk. The story, the interpretation, they're angry with me. I must have messed up that report. They're probably thinking about replacing me. I'm not valued here. The emotion, anxiety, resentment, and insecurity. The reaction, You spend the day distracted, you work slower, and you are cold toward your boss when they finally do speak to you. Now, consider the same stimulus with a different story. The stimulus: your boss didn't say good morning. The story: they look like they're in a massive rush. They probably have that board meeting on their mind. I hope they're doing okay, they seem stressed. The emotion: empathy or neutral calm. The reaction: you stay focused on your work. When you see your boss later, you offer a supportive smile or ask if they need help with anything. The external event was identical. The fact was simply a person walking past a desk without speaking. But the two different stories created two completely different lives for that day. One person lived in a mental prison of their own making. The other remained free. The narrative fallacy: why your brain lies to you. The problem is that our brains are evolutionarily biased toward the negative story. Thousands of years ago, assuming that a rustle in the grass was a predator, rather than just the wind, kept us alive. This is called negative bias. In the modern world, this translates into personalizing. We assume that everything is about us. If a friend hasn't texted back, we assume they are mad at us. If a waiter is rude, we assume they don't respect us. If a project fails, we assume it is a reflection of our worth. The master of reactions realizes that 99% of what people do has absolutely nothing to do with you. It is a reflection of their own internal stories, their own stress, and their own limitations. When you stop being the main character in everyone else's movie, you gain the freedom to stop reacting to their scenes. The Tale of Two Failures, a case study. Let's look at two entrepreneurs, David and Simon. Both of them spent 2 years and their life savings building a tech startup. Both startups failed on the same day due to a sudden shift in the market. David's story. David's internal narrative was, I wasted 2 years. I'm a failure. I've proven that I don't have what it takes to be a leader. Everyone who doubted me was right. I'll never recover from this financially or socially. The reaction. David fell into a deep depression. He stopped networking, felt ashamed to talk to his family, and eventually took a low-level job he hated, convinced he deserved nothing more. His reaction to the failure became a permanent state of failure. Simon's story. Simon's internal narrative was, that was an expensive and intense education. I learned exactly what not to do next time. The market changed, which was out of my control, but my ability to build a product from scratch is now a proven skill. I am now more experienced than 90% of the people in my field. The reaction. Simon reached out to his investors, thanked them for the opportunity, and asked for feedback. He used his new failed startup as a case study in a blog post that went viral. Within 6 months, he was hired as a high-paid consultant for a venture capital firm. The failure was the same. The story was the difference. David's story was a dead end. Simon's story was a bridge. The art of strategic reframing. Reframing is the process of consciously choosing a more useful interpretation of an event. Note the word, useful. This is not about toxic positivity or lying to yourself. If you lose your house in a fire, saying I'm so happy this happened, is a lie. Strategic reframing is about finding the interpretation that allows you to maintain your power and move forward. When something bad happens, ask yourself these 3 questions to change the story. What else could this mean? Challenges the first negative assumption. How is this a test of my character? Turns you from a victim into a student. What is the hidden opportunity here? Directs your brain to look for solutions. If you are stuck in a long line at the airport, the victim story is, this is unfair, I'm going to miss my flight, this airline is incompetent. The master story is, this is a perfect opportunity to practice the patience I've been reading about. It's also a chance to listen to that audiobook I've been neglecting. The line hasn't moved, but your blood pressure has dropped. You have won the moment. The victim versus the victor. There are only 2 fundamental scripts in the human mind: the victim script and the victor script. The victim script is built on the words, because of, should have, why me, unfair. It views life as something that happens to you. It results in reactions of blame, anger, and helplessness. The victor script is built on the words, regardless of, what now, my responsibility, the lesson. It views life as something that happens for you, as raw material to be shaped. It results in reactions of composure, action, and growth. You cannot be a master of your reactions if you are still speaking the language of a victim. You must ruthlessly audit your thoughts. When you hear yourself say, "They made me so angry," stop. Correct yourself. I allowed myself to feel angry because of the story I told myself about their behavior. This shift is painful because it removes the comfort of blame, but it replaces that comfort with the power of sovereignty. Exercises. Editing your internal script. 1. The fact versus fiction audit. Draw a line down the middle of a piece of paper. On the left side, write down the facts of a situation that is currently upsetting you, e.g., my partner said they need space. On the right side, write down the fiction your brain added, e.g., they don't love me anymore, they're going to leave me, I'll be alone forever. Look at how much of your suffering is coming from the right side of the page. Then, take a pen and cross out the right side. 2. The 3-story challenge. Whenever you feel a spike of emotion, fear, anger, jealousy, force yourself to come up with 3 alternative stories for why the event happened. Event. A friend didn't invite you to a party. Story 1. They hate me. Story 2. They forgot. Story 3. They thought I was too busy with my new project. Once you have 3 stories, you realize the first one isn't the truth, it's just a guess. 3. The future self narrative. When in a crisis, ask, in 5 years, how will I tell the story of how I handled this moment? Do you want to tell the story of how you crumbled and screamed? Or do you want to tell the story of how you remained the calmest person in the room? Choose the story you want to tell later, and live it now. Chapter summary. Your reactions do not begin with what you see, they begin with what you think. The meaning you assign to events shapes the chemical landscape of your body. If you tell yourself a story of betrayal, your body will produce the chemicals of war. If you tell yourself a story of opportunity, your body will produce the chemicals of focus. Control the story, and the reaction will take care of itself. You are not a passive observer of your life. You are the author. If you don't like how you are reacting, change the script. The core idea. Change the story. Change the reaction. The event is neutral. The meaning is yours to decide. The repetition phrase for this chapter. I am the author of my reactions. I choose the story that serves my power. Chapter 8. The power of delayed response. The tyranny of the immediate. We live in an age of instant gratification and instantaneous communication. We have been conditioned to believe that speed is a virtue. We are expected to reply to texts in seconds, emails in minutes, and social media comments in real time. This always-on culture has created a psychological environment where we feel that an immediate response is a sign of efficiency, intelligence, and strength. But in the realm of emotional mastery, speed is a trap. Immediate reactions are almost always fueled by the lower self, the ego, the insecurities, and the ancient survival instincts that prioritize short-term relief over long-term victory. When you react immediately, you are essentially gambling with your future. You are throwing a dart while your hand is shaking and the lights are flickering. Mastery belongs to those who understand the power of the delayed response. A delayed response is not a sign of indecision or slowness. It is a sign of supreme confidence. It is the tactical decision to wait until the emotional fog has cleared so that you can see the target with absolute precision. The adrenaline fog. When you are provoked, your body undergoes a physiological transformation. As we discussed in earlier chapters, your system is flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. This is a survival mechanism designed to help you fight off a predator or run away from a fire. The problem is that adrenaline, while great for physical survival, is terrible for intellectual or social strategy. Adrenaline creates tunnel vision. It narrows your perspective. It makes you focus entirely on the perceived threat and the immediate need to win or protect yourself. In this state, you lose access to your wisdom, your empathy, and your long-term goals. You become a version of yourself with a lower IQ and a higher ego. This is the adrenaline fog. If you respond while standing in this fog, you will almost certainly say something you will later regret. You will burn a bridge you needed to cross, or you will reveal a vulnerability that your enemies can use against you. The digital landmine, a real-world example. Consider the story of Julian, a talented software engineer. Julian had spent 3 months working on a complex piece of code. One Tuesday morning, he received an email from a project manager named Sarah. The email was blunt. "Julian, we've reviewed your latest commit. It's buggy, inefficient, and has delayed the launch. We need a total rewrite by Friday." Julian felt the heat rise in his neck. He felt insulted. He felt his hard work was being dismissed by someone who didn't even understand the technical difficulties he had faced. The immediate reaction, the path of regret. Julian's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Sarah, if you actually understood the architecture, you'd know why it's written this way. Maybe the delay is because your requirements were vague from day one. I'm not rewriting anything until you explain the efficiency issues with data, not just vague complaints." He hit send. For 5 minutes, he felt a rush of satisfaction. He had stood up for himself. But an hour later, the adrenaline faded. He realized he had just insulted a superior, blamed the management, and looked defensive. Sarah didn't respond. Instead, she forwarded the email to the CTO. Julian's reputation as a difficult employee was cemented. A week later, he was taken off the project. The delayed response, the path of wisdom. Imagine if Julian had practiced the power of the delayed response. He would have read the email, felt the anger, and then closed his laptop. He would have gone for a walk or finished a different task. 4 hours later, with his heart rate back to normal, he would have looked at the email again. With a clear head, he would have seen that Sarah wasn't attacking him. She was stressed because the launch was at risk. His response would have been, "Sarah, I hear your concerns about the bugs and the timeline. I'm confident in the core architecture, but let's sit down for 15 minutes this afternoon so I can understand exactly where the inefficiencies are. I'll make sure we have a solution that keeps the Friday launch on track." This response is stronger, more professional, and infinitely more powerful. It solves the problem without creating a new one. Julian didn't lose his power by waiting, he gained it. The cooling off period. In the legal world, many contracts have a cooling off period, a duration of time where you can back out of a deal after signing it. This exists because society recognizes that people make impulsive, emotional decisions that they regret once they calm down. You must create a cooling off period for your own life. The rule is simple. The more intense the emotion, the longer the delay. If you are slightly annoyed, wait 10 minutes. If you are angry, wait 2 hours. If you are devastated or enraged, wait 24 hours. Time is the ultimate filter. It filters out the ego and leaves only the essence of the situation. When you wait, you give the world permission to change. Often, the person who insulted you will realize their mistake and apologize before you even have to respond. Or, the crisis will turn out to be a misunderstanding. By waiting, you avoid fighting battles that would have vanished on their own. Silence as a placeholder. People often fear that if they don't respond immediately, they will look weak or like they are avoiding the issue. If you feel the need to acknowledge a situation without reacting to it, use a placeholder. A placeholder is a neutral statement that buys you time without giving away your hand. "I've received your message. I'm going to think about this and get back to you later today. This is an important topic. Let's discuss it when we both have more time to focus. I hear what you're saying. I need some time to process that before I respond." These statements are incredibly high status. They communicate that you are a person who treats your own thoughts with respect, that you don't just blurp out whatever is on your mind. It shows that you are the master of your time and your tongue. The 3 filters of a mastered response. Before you finally choose to respond after your delay, run your intended words through the 3 filters of Socrates, plus a 4th filter for the master of reactions. Is it true? Are you speaking facts, or are you speaking your ego's version of the facts? Is it kind? Does this response maintain the dignity of both parties, or is it a jab? Is it necessary? Does saying this actually move you closer to your goal, or are you just trying to feel right? Is it strong? Does this response project calm authority, Or does it sound like you are seeking validation? If your response doesn't pass these filters, stay silent. Continue the delay. The strategy of information. In any conflict, the person who speaks first provides the most information. When you respond instantly, you are showing your hand. You are showing exactly where you are hurt, what makes you angry, and how you think. When you delay, you are collecting information while giving none. You are watching the other person. Often, in the silence of your delay, the other person will continue to speak, revealing more of their own insecurity, their true intentions, or their own mistakes. Delaying is a form of information warfare. It allows you to respond to the full picture rather than just the first brushstroke. Exercises. Mastering the clock. 1. The draft purgatory. If you are triggered by an email or text, you are allowed to write the most vitriolic, angry, and honest response you want. But you must write it in a separate document, not in the reply box. Read it back to yourself. Feel the release of having written it. Then, delete it. Wait 2 hours, and then write the actual response. 2. The physical break. When you feel a reaction coming on in a face-to-face setting, physically remove yourself if possible. Excuse me, I need to grab some water, use the restroom. That 60-second break and the physical movement of walking helps break the adrenaline loop and reset your brain. 3. The 24-hour rule for big decisions. Never say yes or no to a major opportunity or a major confrontation in the same conversation it is presented. Always say, "Let me sleep on it." The version of you that wakes up tomorrow morning is almost always wiser than the version of you that is being pressured today. Chapter summary. Immediate reactions create regret. They are the language of the impulsive and the insecure. Delayed responses create wisdom. They are the language of the powerful and the poised. By choosing to wait, you are taking control of the clock. You are refusing to be rushed by other people's emergencies or other people's provocations. You are giving yourself the gift of perspective. Remember, you can always say it later, but you can never take it back. The strength of your life is determined by the length of the pause between what you feel and what you do. The core idea. Immediate reactions are surrender of power. Delayed responses are an assertion of authority. Respond later, respond stronger. The repetition phrase for this chapter. Respond later, respond stronger. Time is my ally. Wisdom is my guide. Chapter 9. Emotional control creates authority. The illusion of loudness. In our culture, we often confuse aggression with authority. We are conditioned by movies and television to think that a leader is the person who is barking orders, slamming their fist on the desk, and dominating the room through sheer volume and emotional volatility. We see the strongman archetype, the person who reacts explosively to every slight, and we mistake that for power. In reality, the opposite is true. Explosive reactions are a confession of weakness. When you shout, when you become visibly flustered, or when you let your emotions spill out uncontrollably, you are signaling to everyone around you that you have reached your limit. You are showing that the situation has become bigger than you are. You have lost the battle with your own nervous system, and therefore you are no longer fit to lead others. True authority is quiet. It is steady. It is the still point in the center of a turning world. Authority is not something you demand. It is something that is naturally granted to the person who remains the most stable when things go wrong. The emotional anchor. To understand why emotional control creates authority, we must look at the concept of the emotional anchor. In any group setting, a family, a sports team, or a corporation, emotions are contagious. This is due to mirror neurons in the brain, which cause us to subconsciously mimic the emotional state of those around us. If one person in a room starts to panic, the heart rates of everyone else in the room will begin to climb. If one person becomes aggressive, others will either become defensive or aggressive in return. The person with the most stable internal state acts as the anchor for the group. Imagine a ship in a storm. The waves are crashing, the wind is howling, and the crew is terrified. The crew doesn't look to the person who is screaming the loudest about the wind. They look to the captain. If the captain's hands are shaking on the wheel, the crew's panic will turn into a riot. But if the captain is standing steady, his voice low and his gaze fixed on the horizon, the crew finds their own courage. His calmness doesn't just mean he isn't afraid, it gives the entire group permission to be calm. This is why authority is inseparable from emotional control. You cannot lead a group to a destination if you are being tossed around by the same waves they are. The pilot's voice, a lesson in presence. Consider the voice of a commercial airline pilot. Have you ever noticed that regardless of whether they are announcing a slight delay or describing severe turbulence, their voice remains exactly the same? It is a calm, low-pitched, almost monotonous drawl. This is not accidental. It is part of their training. The pilot knows that they are the authority figure for hundreds of people in a pressurized metal tube 30,000 feet in the air. If the pilot's voice were to crack, or if they sounded frantic over the intercom, the cabin would descend into chaos. By maintaining a flat emotional response, the pilot communicates, "I have seen this before. This is within the realm of my control. I am not reacting because I am busy solving." Authority is the ability to communicate "I am solving" without saying a word. When you master your reactions, you project a pilot's presence in your everyday life. Whether it's a failed product launch, a family argument, or a personal crisis, your lack of an emotional outburst signals to everyone else that the situation is manageable. The high-status gaze and the economy of motion. Authority is also communicated through the body. People who lack authority are twitchy. They move their hands a lot, they blink rapidly, they shift their weight from foot to foot, and they react to every sound in the room. This is prey behavior. It signals that the individual is hyper-aware of threats and is ready to react at any moment. High-authority individuals exhibit what is known as the economy of motion. They move slower, not because they are lazy, but because they are not in a rush to satisfy someone else's expectations. They speak slower. They aren't afraid of being interrupted, because they know their words have weight. They blink less. A steady gaze communicates that they are the observer, not the observed. When someone tries to provoke a high-authority person, the response is often a slow, deliberate turn of the head and a neutral look. This non-reaction is incredibly intimidating to a manipulator. It shows that you are a heavy object. You are not easily moved. You have emotional gravity. Trust is built in the trenches of control. We don't trust people because they are nice. We trust them because they are predictable. If a manager is great when things are going well, but becomes a monster when a deadline is missed, no one truly trusts them. The team is always on edge, waiting for the next explosion. This walking on eggshells environment destroys productivity and loyalty. However, if a leader is consistent, if their reaction to $1 million win is a calm "good job, let's keep going," and their reaction to $1 million loss is a calm "okay, let's analyze where we went wrong," the team feels safe. They know exactly where they stand. This safety creates a deep, unbreakable form of authority. People will follow a calm leader into a fire, but they will desert a volatile leader at the first opportunity. The power of the underreaction. In social dynamics, the person who reacts the least is usually perceived as having the most power. Think about a comedy club. If a heckler shouts something offensive at the comedian, and the comedian gets angry and starts shouting back, the heckler has won. The heckler has moved the comedian. They have dictated the comedian's emotional state. But if the comedian simply stops, looks at the heckler with a bored expression, waits for the room to get silent, and then calmly says one short sentence before returning to the bit, the comedian has asserted total authority. In your life, practice the underreaction. If someone gives you big news, good or bad, don't go over the top with your response. If someone insults you, don't get defensive. If you win an award, don't act like it's the greatest day of your life. By underreacting, you signal that you are bigger than the event. You are telling the world, "I expected this. I am not surprised. My internal state is deeper than this surface-level noise." Why calmness signals strength. In the animal kingdom, only the top predators can afford to be truly relaxed. A deer is always twitching, always looking, always reacting. A lion can sleep in the middle of an open field. Human beings still carry this primal coding. When we see someone who is profoundly relaxed in a high-pressure environment, our subconscious brain identifies them as a top predator. We instinctively feel that they must have a reason for their lack of fear. We assume they have resources, skills, or knowledge that we don't. This is the secret source of charisma. Charisma isn't about being likable, it's about being formidable yet controlled. When you master your reactions, you become formidable. People begin to seek your counsel. They want to know what you think. They want to be near your anchor so they can feel more stable themselves. Exercises. Building your authority presence. 1. The low and slow speaking drill. For the next 24 hours, consciously lower the pitch of your voice by just 10% and speak 20% slower than usual. Pay attention to how people listen to you. You will find that you are interrupted less often and that people lean in to hear you. This is the sound of authority. 2. The stillness practice. When you are in a meeting or a social gathering, practice being physically still. Keep your hands on the table or in your lap. Do not fidget with your phone or your pen. When you need to look at someone, move your head deliberately. Experience the feeling of being the eye of the hurricane. 3. The neutral face test. Next time someone tells you something shocking, annoying, or exciting, try to keep your facial expression completely neutral for the first 5 seconds. Don't let your eyebrows jump. Don't let your mouth twitch. Observe the situation with your eyes, not your ego. Then, after the 5 seconds, choose the most strategic response. 4. Voluntary discomfort. Take cold showers or sit in silence for 20 minutes. These small acts of not reacting to physical or mental discomfort build the authority muscle in your brain. If you can stay calm while freezing water hits your skin, you can stay calm when a client yells at you. Chapter summary. Authority is not a title given by a company. It is a status earned through emotional self-mastery. People are naturally drawn to those who remain stable under pressure. When you master your reactions, you become an emotional anchor for everyone in your orbit. Remember, the more chaotic the world becomes, the more valuable the calm person is. By refusing to be moved by petty provocations and temporary crises, you signal a strength that loud people will never possess. Calmness is the ultimate form of dominance. It is the signature of a master. The core idea. Calmness signals strength. Stability creates trust. The person who is least moved by the environment is the person who leads the environment. The repetition phrase for this chapter. Calmness signals strength. I am the anchor. I am the authority. Chapter 10. Become unshakable. The final level of mastery. We have traveled through the mechanics of the pause, the traps of manipulation, the weapon of silence, and the discipline of detachment. We have learned to see the game, to protect our opportunities, and to control the internal narrative. But all these tools lead to one final, ultimate state of being, becoming unshakable. To be unshakable does not mean that you no longer feel the impact of the world. It means that the world no longer has the power to change your fundamental nature. Imagine the ocean. On the surface, there may be a hurricane. The waves are 50 feet high, the wind is screaming, and the water is a chaotic mess of foam and fury. But if you descend 500 feet below the surface, the water is still. It is silent. It is at peace. The hurricane is real, but it is surface-level noise. The deep water is unaffected by what is happening above. Most people live their entire lives on the surface. They are tossed by every wave of news, every ripple of gossip, and every gust of criticism. To become unshakable is to move your consciousness into the depths. It is the realization that your internal world is your own sovereign territory, and you are the only one with a passport to enter it. The 2 pillars of the unshakable mind. There are 2 primary pillars that support an unshakable life: indifference to opinion and radical responsibility. Pillar 1. Indifference to opinion, the trap of praise and blame. Throughout this book, we have focused heavily on how to handle negative reactions, anger, insults, and criticism. But to be truly unshakable, you must also master your reaction to praise. If you allow a compliment to make your day, you have just given the world permission to ruin your day with an insult. If your self-esteem rises when people cheer for you, it will inevitably crash when they boo. Both praise and blame are forms of external noise. They are both attempts by the world to tell you who you are. The unshakable individual has an internal compass. They know their own value. They know their own faults. If someone praises them for something they didn't do well, they don't feel good. They see it as a mistake. If someone criticizes them for something they did perfectly, they don't feel bad. They see the critic as being misinformed. Think of an elite athlete, like Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan. When they were on the court, thousands of fans were screaming insults at them. Did they stop to argue? Did they feel less than because a stranger in the 10th row called them a failure? No, they were in the zone. They were unshakable because their focus was on the mission, not the audience. To be unshakable, you must become your own most rigorous judge. When you are the one who sets the standards for your life, the opinions of others become nothing more than data points, sometimes useful, often not, but never powerful enough to shake your foundation. Pillar 2. Radical responsibility. The second pillar is the total acceptance that you, and only you, are responsible for your reactions. The moment you say, "He made me angry," or "This situation is making me depressed," you have surrendered your unshakability. You have declared yourself a victim of the environment. The unshakable mind says, "I'm feeling anger because of how I am interpreting this person's behavior. I have the power to change that interpretation." This is the ultimate internal power. It is the bridge between being a reactor and being a creator. When you take radical responsibility, you stop waiting for the world to be fair or nice before you decide to be happy. You realize that you can be at peace in a prison cell, and you can be miserable in a palace. The palace or the cell is the environment. The peace or the misery is the reaction. The elite performer, a study in focus. Consider the work of a world-class trauma surgeon. In the operating room, everything is a potential crisis. The patient's heart stops. An artery ruptures. A piece of equipment fails. The air is thick with tension. If the surgeon reacts emotionally, if they gasp, if they swear, if they allow their hands to shake with fear, the patient dies. The surgeon must be unshakable. They acknowledge the crisis, the patient is bleeding out, but they do not react to the emotion of the crisis. They stay in the process. They focus on the next stitch, the next order, the next breath. This is what it means to be unshakable in everyday life. When your patient, your business, your family, your goal is on the table and things go wrong, do you join the chaos or do you become the still point? The world belongs to the unshakable because, in a crisis, everyone else loses their minds. The person who keeps theirs becomes the natural leader. The morning shield and the evening audit. Mastery is not a destination you reach and then stop. It is a daily maintenance of your internal fortress. To stay unshakable, you must implement 2 daily rituals. 1. The morning shield, preparation. Before you check your phone, before you read the news, and before you talk to anyone, you must shield your mind. Spend 5 minutes in silence. Remind yourself of the truth. Today I will encounter rude people, ungrateful people, and chaotic events. I cannot control them, but I own my mind. I will pause. I will see the game. I will remain the mountain. By anticipating the chaos, you take away its power to surprise you. You are preloading your mastered reactions. 2. The evening audit, reflection. At the end of the day, review your performance as if you were a coach watching game tape. Where did I lose my cool today? What was the hook that got me? How can I expand the pause in that situation next time? Do not judge yourself. Simply observe. Every failed reaction is just data for tomorrow's mastery. The sovereignty of the soul. As you move toward this final level, you will notice a strange and beautiful phenomenon. The world will start to leave you alone. Manipulators thrive on reactions. When they realize that you are a black hole for their drama, that no matter what they say, you remain calm, polite, and steady, they will stop trying. They will look for a lighter target. Your unshakability becomes a protective field. You will find that you have more energy because you aren't wasting it on ego defense. You will find that you are more creative because your mind isn't clouded by resentment. You will find that you are more influential because your presence is a safe harbor for others. This is the full audiobook of your new life. You are no longer a puppet moved by the strings of social media, office politics, or petty insults. You have cut the strings. You are the master of the pause. You are the architect of the story. You are the sovereign of your own mind. The ultimate truth. The world will never be perfect. People will always be difficult. The hurricane on the surface will always be blowing. But you have learned how to dive. True power is not the ability to change the wind. It is the ability to remain unshakable regardless of which way the wind blows. When you master your reactions, you master your life. Because when nothing outside can control what happens inside, you are finally, truly free. Final exercises. Living the unshakable life. 1. The so what? Filter. Whenever something bad happens, ask yourself, so what? They don't like me. So what? I like myself. I lost the deal. So what? I have the skills to get a new one. I made a mistake. So what? I am human and I will fix it. This is not about being dismissive. It is about refusing to give small things a big place in your heart. 2. Practice amor fati, love of fate. This is the Stoic practice of not just accepting what happens, but embracing it. If you face a challenge, treat it as the exact workout you needed to become stronger. If someone betrays you, treat it as a necessary lesson in discernment. When you love your fate, you cannot be shaken by it. 3. The silence of the wise. Make it a goal to be the person who speaks the least in any room, but whose words have the most weight. Let your unshakable presence be your primary message. Conclusion. The new you. You are now equipped with the tools to handle anything life throws at you. You know that. The pause is power. Silence is a weapon. Detachment is freedom. The story is yours to write. Go out into the world. Let the critics shout. Let the manipulators play their games. Let the chaos swirl. You are the mountain. You are the deep ocean. You are the master of your reactions. Master your reactions, and you will master your life. The core idea. The final level of mastery is when external chaos can no longer disturb your internal stability. You are the only one who decides how you feel. The final repetition phrase. Nothing outside controls what happens inside. I am unshakable. I am the master. This concludes the full text of Master Your Reactions, Master Your Life.